Hi, welcome to the show. I'm going to be talking about the First Fleet and the Australia Day or Invasion Day. Uh, so, I'm just going to be talking about the foundational orgy, which is something I didn't learn at school, weirdly enough. But yeah, there's this incident um, on the first evening of the landing where the First Fleeters had a big orgy. I found this, there's nothing really mentioning, you don't find any sort of record or anyone talking about this online. This is the only place where I've sort of found it as the resident judge of Port Phillip. And if we go down here, it says there's no real evidence that the orgy ever occurred. Or what evidence would there be? What evidence? There is evidence. It's these first-hand accounts. That's primary evidence. So, what's he talking about? I think this is here the sort of white Australian fear that and realization that it's not a big country like England or America. And there was, even growing up, there was this whole sort of mythos around Australia Day. I remember as a kid, going to Australia Day celebrations, before the world was woke. Stupid, you know. And it was weird as like an Aboriginal kid being a part of this. Uh, You know, it was just stupid. And it was nothing. It was like, you know, it was just all flag waving and sort of singing the national anthem. And that's kind of it, and talking about colonials and pioneers. So, and James Cook. And it was sort of just this, myth building thing. Even as a kid, you could see, well, this is kind of stupid. You couldn't quite put your finger on it, but you understand this is weird. But um, people was people were really sold on it. I was like a '70s kid, so it was the big thing, and it was all about sort of nation building and mythos. Because the Americans had their Star Spangled Banner, and the Australians kind of had this. It was a penal colony. And that's the reason why Australia was set up, because of the American Revolutionary War. They were, once that was no longer um, accessible to the British, um, it's where we're going to send their prisoners. So it was all, this is what Australia was. It's a penal colony. And there's no, it's sort of like it was a jail. It was a giant jail. And the inconvenience of, Aboriginal people being there. And of course, in that 19th century idea, why are we called Aborigines? Um, and Native Americans are called Native Americans. Or up until recently, it was called Indians, which was because Christopher Columbus was an idiot. Thought he'd landed in India. He was looking for a trade route. But I digress. So there's no great mythos. Um, this is it. And I think it was really pushed for 100 or so, during the 20th century. And by the end of it, especially with the land rights movement and the settler colonial project, I mean, it's kind of petered out. People aren't really interested in it. And, why should you be? Just have a holiday, you know, to see it. This sort of nationalism garbage, it's sort of American thing, really. Um, there's no noble cause here. This is a settler colonial project. It's, like America, um, Canada, you know, um, and the modern one is Israel. It's the same deal. So yeah, I mean, it's all a mythos. It's not. It's just to brainwash you into thinking that somehow you're all this one unified thing. You know, it's to instill nationalism. But the first fleeters weren't, you know, um, these great pioneers, and they were convicts sent there by the British Empire. And those people weren't hardcore British. They were mostly like most of them were Irish dissidents, um, and sex workers. That was it. A few naval officers and Marines. That was kind of it. So yeah, um, most probably these people were victims of the settler colonial system. I feel sorry for the first fleeters. They were just, you know, poor people who'd incurred the wrath and were disliked by the elites, and so they were sent out here. So yeah, but in the Australians so weird about this stuff. Um, but yeah, so yeah, it says there's no evidence that the orgy ever occurred. Surgeon Arthur Bowes Smith wrote that the men convicts got to them soon as they landed. That's my posh British accent, by the way. And that it was beyond my abilities to give a just description of the scene of debauchery and riot that ensued during the night. Debauchery can only mean one thing. Yeah, these are 19th century, not 19th century, 18th century types. There's no other use of that word, debauchery, except as a, sex party, orgy. And can you blame them? Think of it. At the time, it would be like traveling to Mars. I mean, they'd kind of just gone through, what is it, a 6 month near death experience. Imagine going around the Cape of Good Hope, the storms around there, or going across there's that jet stream that goes at the bottom of the world, runs around Antarctica and hits around Tasmania. or the Indian Ocean, or, how crazy that would have been. So you'd gone through this massive life-death experience, you know, and you'd come out the other side. You'd survived. Of course you're going to celebrate and party. It just makes sense. And why would these people who've written these accounts, why would they make it up? And how would they keep the evidence? Would they have drawn a sketch or done an etching? So, yeah, it's just downplaying it and dismissing it and saying there's no evidence for it. But yeah, I mean, other sort of historians. It goes back to Professor Manning Clark. Okay, let me show you. Just bring him up here. This guy. So yeah, he was the professor. John Howard loved this guy. I think he gave him some sort of medal, which they made up. So yeah, and he did he wrote his book called A Short History of Australia, and so this is where the accounts came from. But then he later recanted the story, and said he'd read his sources wrong. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason why it didn't take place. So yeah, I believe it happened. In my head canon, I believe it happened, and it was great fun. Good on them. Now, if Australia Day or Invasion Day was that, hey, we'd all be on board. It's sort of like, oh, got to go to the orgy each year, you know. So yeah, I mean, just want to do a quick video on this. I found this interesting. It was funny that how because when I looked for this is the only sort of thing I've found on reference to it. Because it's like the internet scrubbed, or it's just all stories denying its existence. It's so funny to sort of see. I mean, the accounts. There's two accounts. There's the ship surgeon, and who else? And Ralph Clark. So yeah, and he says Ralph Clark described the women's tents, scenes of whoredom. It goes on to say, but he called all convict women whores. Well, that's because they were. All the convict women were sex workers. That's the reality. I love how these writers all try and downplay it and try and dismiss it, or they can't handle the reality of it, and they make up these brainwashed excuses that it didn't happen. But there you go, guys. That's your beloved Australia Day. for the neo-Nazis crying. Um, yeah, that's your Great Australia Day, the founding of a penal colony, um, with an orgy. The orgy part is great, you know. But this whole sort of thing, yeah, it's sounds true too. It makes sense that that would happen. That you'd go through all this stuff and you survived. And these people were the least of the least in society. They had and they'd survived this massive experience. They say that during a near-death experience, there's this connection between sex and death. And it makes sense because you've gone through this full-on near-death experience. What else would make sense but a life-affirming, act of sex? It's just the relief and of still being alive, I suppose. So yeah, okay, that was uh, my little video. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.